Welcome. My name is Tolu. I'm a Christian relationship counselor and I help you pick the right partner for a godly marriage. So right now we're going to be talking about the difference between the right man and the right man to marry. The reason that I know this topic is of particular importance is I know that a lot of you struggle to understand what does it look like when I'm talking to a potential partner as opposed to what does it look like when I'm just talking to somebody that I could have a healthy relationship with but isn't in alignment with my values. What does it look like when I'm talking to somebody I could marry as opposed to somebody that would make a good marriage but not necessarily the right marriage that God has for me? What is the difference between knowing when I have a potential future with this man as opposed to just focusing on what we presently have and what we could potentially have but is not in alignment with what God desires for us? So that's why, as you all know, I do polls and you guys chose this particular topic. So let me know, as is our custom here, let me know where you're tuning in from. Make sure you tag a friend. You guys know if there's time at the end of the live, I will answer your questions. I have to hop off in a couple of minutes because I have to go to a client meeting. But if you have any questions, make sure that you put them in the question box. If it is in the comment section, I will not answer it. And yeah, let me know where you guys are tuning in from. Tag your friends to join the live. This will definitely be very interesting because I know that as a Christian woman, there are a lot of misconceptions around godly dating. There are a lot of misconceptions around what a Christian woman should expect when she's dating, what a Christian woman should experience when she's dating, and how the Christian dating experience should look like for a godly woman. And what we try to do here on Fan the Flame is we lay down for you through our posts, our live videos, and if you want to work more intimately through our programs. And right now that is Dating to Marry. Dating to Marry is my 12-week program where I walk you through how to date scripturally and practically, vet from a quality pool of men, and marry easily so that you are in alignment with your spiritual and physical and emotional calling to marriage. Now, this program is going to be closing for the year next week. So if you're interested in being a Dating to Marry client, make sure you click the link in my bio and the first tab to register for our open house, where I will be sharing with you exactly what the program is about. And if you are interested in applying for the program, you can click the link in bio and the second tab. The application form is there. Even if you don't get qualified, you will be able to self-assess the areas that you need to adjust in your dating process. I got an interesting email from someone that filled the form and said that it really helped her to self-assess where exactly she's getting it wrong as she's dating, what she needs to do differently, and where she may be making mistakes in the dating process of qualifying men. So even if you don't get qualified for the call, going through that form will really help you to self-assess areas that you need to pay attention to, patterns that you need to change. And I will send you a follow-up email between 24 to 48 hours letting you know how I can assist you at your current position. So yeah, that's amazing. I see that we have the US here, we have Nigeria here. Fantastic. Let me know where you guys are tuning in from. So this is going to be an interesting conversation because, like I said, there are a lot of misconceptions around godly dating. I don't know if you guys had seen my post that I did last night about being saved and sexy. As always, whenever I say counterintuitive or controversial posts around the Christian faith, it's always very interesting to see the mixture of comments that come through those particular kinds of posts. But I do firmly believe that through the process of working with you guys in Fan the Flame, just through this ministry of sharing content, helping you to understand how to date in a godly manner, and more intimately working with you through Dating to Marry and Wife in Waiting, I align you to the way you are supposed to date as a Christian woman. Unfortunately, being a Christian woman in this day and age there's a lot of misconceptions around how you can carry yourself confidently, attractively, be sexy and covered up. It doesn't mean, I don't know why sexy and slutty are somehow synonymous in the Christian faith. It's very unfortunate, but it doesn't mean the same thing. And you can also be sensual. Sensual simply means being able to gratify your senses. It doesn't necessarily mean sex. But it's always interesting whenever you are in conversations with Christians and you see them gravitate towards that understanding, which shows that there's a predisposition for qualifying women and making them feel as if they are somehow sexual creatures and that's all they are, which is not true. Just because I'm a woman and I say I want to be sexy, I want to be sensual, does not mean I want to dress slottily. It doesn't mean I want to manipulate or provoke or be provocative in any way that will mislead men. But it's interesting whenever I see comments like that, because I'm just like, that's not what I meant. But it's always interesting to see that. And that's what we do here, and that's what we do more intimately in Dating to Marry, because we are very firm believers through my program and through the clients I carefully curate to work with. That's why we have an application-based process. We're very clear about making sure that you're dating practically and scripturally, so that you're in alignment with your God-given values and your God-given calling to marriage. Being called to marriage doesn't mean you have to deny any part of your gender as a woman. Doesn't mean you have to deny your flesh to the point where you're confused about how to express your femininity. It doesn't mean that you have to suppress yourself emotionally to the point where you can't enjoy yourself through your senses, whether it's having a nice walk in the park, experiencing different foods by going to a food bazaar, listening to good music. It's so interesting how that experience is somehow constricted and constrained towards meaning that it has to do with sex, or it has to do with dressing in a manner that is slutty or shameful. Absolutely not. I can be covered up and sexy. I can express myself articulately and still be seen as a sexy, sensual woman. I do not need to be naked, and I do not need to be confused. And the reason I'm emphasizing this, in fact, we're going to have another live later in the week, so make sure you check out my poll to see, to vote for which topic you would like. The reason I'm hitting on this is it's so fundamental to dating as a woman that you are connected to every part of your being. You don't deny it to the point where you are confused by what it looks like. And it's going to help you understand how to know the right man for you as opposed to the wrong man. Because here's what we're not talking about in the faith. We're not talking about all the marriages that people have entered into under the guise of purity, and they're married to homosexuals or men that are not attracted to them. We're not talking about how marriages in the faith are fading because a woman is not able to sexually express and is not feeling sexually liberated in her marriage. We're not talking about how men and women in marriages are not in alignment with the way they want that marriage to work and how they understand the Christian faith to operate, because they didn't have those conversations during the courtship process. And this is what is happening. This is a reality that is going on with a lot of Christian couples. And those are the people that are propagating this mindset of making it seem as if, yes, you can enter a marriage without talking about sex. Yes, sexual attraction will find you inside marriage. Yes, you can definitely marry somebody that you know that you do not find any ounce of attraction towards and is uncomfortable around you discussing or even expressing yourself. It's making it... And that's the problem, because that's not true. And you will enter a marriage that will not be in alignment with what God wants for you. And you will start blaming God when he never approved that marriage in the first place. That's why in Find the Flame, that's why through our programs, we're very clear. We're very articulate about the fact that you need to be able to express your femininity sexually, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. You are a tripartite being. You are a spiritual person. You're a spiritual being having a human experience. So to deny the part of your flesh that is so essential to that human experience is it's idiotic, in my opinion. So it's important that as a Christian and as a woman of faith, that you understand the dynamics of how you want to express yourself in the dating scene, so that you know how to properly discern, you know how to properly qualify men. And that is what is going to make it easy for you to know the difference between what is considered the right man. He ticks all the boxes, he meets all the qualifications, he has the job, he attends the church. How many of you have dated men in the faith that have turned out to be wolves in sheep's clothing? How many of you have dated tongue-speaking Christians that have taken advantage of you? How many of you have been in situations where your pastor or your parents or your peers have tried to pressure you into relationships because of the guys that this man presents, but you know that he's something entirely different? That's the problem. You need to be able to qualify men for yourself. And the thing is, God doesn't just speak through your spirit, he will use your flesh. So you need to be able to engage with this man in conversations. You need to be able to go through experiences with him to be able to discern properly. It is not all spirit, kumbaya. You need to be able to engage in the flesh to see how this person interacts with other people, how much they are engaging with you in your present environment, how interactive they are when it comes to meeting your people and when it comes to going to experiences together. You can't pray everything away. You need to be practical in the process. And that's why it's important that as you're dating, you know God for yourself. It's very important that you will have a personal relationship with God, because if we want to even talk about knowing the difference between the right man and the right man for you to marry, it starts from knowing the Father yourself. You have to be able to understand your own relationship with God. You have to be able to understand the way he speaks to you. You need to be in a position where you can properly qualify what people are saying to you. I don't care if it's me or if it's your pastor or your parents. You need to qualify what is being said to you in a way that allows you to properly filter whether or not this is in alignment with what your spirit is saying and what God has revealed to you in terms of how you are emotionally calibrated to engage with people and be able to have connections with them. And it's important that you get this, because the right man for you is going to be going through that process of qualification. And that's why in the Dating to Marry program, we walk clients through the process of learning how to qualify men, not just from a spiritual standpoint, but also from understanding how to engage with them practically by going on dates, how to be able to emotionally vet the way they approach situations, and how to be able to engage with them in physical setups or physical experiences, whether it's going on a date, going to an event together, being able to properly qualify those experiences in a way that allows you to see if this is somebody you could potentially marry. That's what you need to be doing. So taking it back a bit, when you're looking at the right man, right, when we're talking about right here, I believe that Christian women struggle with, it's not so much right and wrong. It's more to do with what is right for you and what is right for everybody else. That's the gray area that I want to focus on today. It's not about, oh, this man is clearly not of the faith. No, I'm talking about when he is of the faith. I'm talking about when he is a good man. I'm talking about when he will make a good husband, but he is not the right person for you. That's what I really want to focus on. So like I said, you need to know God for yourself, because it's going to prompt you to know exactly how he speaks to you. It's going to be able to properly allow you to qualify the kinds of conversations you're having with the opposite sex through the right filters, so that you know, okay, what is God saying to me about this person through the way we have been connecting, through the way we've been talking, through the way I feel about them. That's why I say you can't just have a spiritual experience when you're trying to choose a life partner. You need to put them through the proper filters of the spirit, the soul, and the body to see whether there is a proper calibration in all three areas to allow you to qualify this person for a lifetime experience. We're not talking about a marriage that is going to be a year or two. We're talking about a lifetime commitment. So you need to be able to look through those different standpoints to see whether or not you want to be with this person. And to be able to do that, like I said, know God for yourself. You also need to know the kind of marriage you've been called to. So here's the thing. What's your marital mission? Are you aware of that? A marital mission is simply, what have you been called to achieve in marriage? How are you carrying that in your practical day-to-day living as you are now? What do you want to accomplish as a single woman? What's your purpose? What does that look like practically broken down? What does it look like for you to experience purpose in your day-to-day activities? What does it look like to engage with people in your environment in a way that speaks to or gives you clues about the calling that God has given you maritally? Because that's going to properly allow you to know whether this is the right man for you, or if it's just a good man that you cannot marry. For instance, you may be called to be a missionary. That means that you are somebody that is going to be going to a lot of places, both locally and globally. You are going to be very mobile. If you are dating a man that is completely opposed to the opinion of being mobile, he doesn't want his wife to be moving around, he just wants you to stay at home. He may be a good man, that may be his ideology, that may be the way he is. That may be the way he is programmed to approach relationships, but he's not the right man for you, because it's not in alignment with your marital mission. It's not in alignment with your marital calling. It's not in alignment with the mission that God has given you to achieve in your purpose, and more importantly, in this particular case, with your partner. Now, get this right. Okay, it doesn't mean that your husband is, if you're a missionary, it doesn't mean your husband is going to be a missionary. But it definitely means that he should not be opposed to the idea of you traveling. And he may not be opposed in speech. This is why with Dating to Marry clients, we walk them through how to properly qualify a man's actions. It's not about him saying, sure, I don't have a problem with you traveling. I don't have a problem with you being on the road 5 to 6 times a week. I don't have a problem with that. It's about how he responds to it through his actions, how he engages with you when you are going about your mission, when you're going about your purpose, how interested and invested he is, how much he's able to add to that calling in your life, how much you are able to assist in his own calling. That's why I say that as a woman of faith, you also need to be vetting as you are being vetted. It's not a pick me situation where you're trying to make sure that this guy chooses you out of all the women that he's talking to, or he may not be talking to. It's not a situation where you're trying to make sure you're trying to prove to him that you're wife material. No. What we encourage our clients to do is to firstly have an understanding of what your calling is in marriage, what your calling is in the faith, and then properly carry that out when you are going on dates. So if you have the kind of marriage that is geared towards missionary work, that ultimately means that you do not want to be with somebody that is opposed to that lifestyle, that is not even interested in engaging in conversations around how that could potentially work, that is not able to actively involve or participate himself. He may not physically be going on the mission trips with you, but he's completely cut off from the process and has no interest in participating even in a dialogue around the topic. So you need to know the kind of marriage you've been called to. Let me give you another example. If you've been called to carry out exploits in your professional field, you don't want to be with somebody that is threatened by your ambition, that is threatened by the fact that you are able to express yourself, that is threatened by the fact that you are making giant leaps and bounds in your office, that is threatened by the fact that you have professional responsibilities, that is threatened by the fact that you are earning more than them, that is threatened by the fact that you are confident and you are able to carry yourself well. You definitely don't want to be in that kind of relationship, and you want to watch out for that as you're dating. Again, this doesn't mean by any means, shape, or form that he's manipulative, abusive. It could mean that he just doesn't want his wife to be, he wants to be the one that takes care of the home. Sorry, he wants his wife to be the one that takes care of the whole house. He wants his wife to be the one that is actively responsible for everything going on in the home. He wants you in that role to be actively and fully participating in the lives of the children you are going to bring into your home, whether by adoption or biologically. That could be what it means. It doesn't mean he's a bad person. It doesn't mean he's abusive. Yes, those things do happen. And if you are dating somebody like that, obviously they do not qualify. Even if, and the irony, here's another thing. They may be comfortable with you going out, but they are not comfortable. They may be comfortable with you having a job. They would not even mind if you earn more than them, but they would abuse you in the home. So obviously that still cannot work. That's why you see there are certain things you cannot qualify from the spirit. What people don't understand is, as much as you are prompted in the spirit, the manifestation is going to take place in the flesh. So that means you have to physically experience it. You have to physically experience whether or not God says yes through that man's actions. You have to physically experience whether or not God is in approval of the relationship through the pattern in which both of you are dating. So it's not, you have to be able to properly qualify the way you categorize these experiences so that you know exactly whether or not this person is in alignment with the mission God has given you. And that's why we're very particular with our dating to marry clients on understanding how to date, not only from a spiritual standpoint, but more practically. Because I see a lot of Christian women struggle with this. You struggle with understanding, okay, what does it look like for me to be an attractive woman that is confident in herself, that is connected to her femininity, that is sexy, that is sensual, that is saved, and is able to participate in her environment in a godly way, but in a way that doesn't take away from who I am in essence. They don't teach that in the faith. They don't share information around that, and that's why we're very particular with it in the program, in making sure that you properly understand how this looks like and what exactly you need to be looking out for. So apart from understanding, okay, what's my relationship with God like, and how can I properly develop that relationship, and God is actively speaking to you whatever stage you're at. I don't care if you're a baby Christian, you got saved yesterday, or you just got saved this morning. You have started the conversation. I want you to start paying attention, because he would always speak to you in a way you can understand. That's why I'm not a fan of going to pastors and prophets and peers and parents for conclusions on whether marriage or decisions regarding your work. I'm more a fan of using their advice to properly qualify and confirm what God has already said to you. So it's important that you are able to understand the difference. So apart from the kinds of marriages and knowing your own relationship with him, it's important as well that you're able to identify your non-negotiables. Let me know if this is resonating with you. Tap the hearts if this is resonating with you. I've said quite a bit already, right? Because we haven't done it live in a while, I think. So I've said quite a bit already. Let me know which part resonated with you. Tap the hearts. I just want to make sure that you guys are following what I'm saying. Like I said, I won't answer questions in the comments. I'm very strict about that. Make sure you put it in the question box. So tap the hearts if this is resonating with you. Drop a comment if you have any particular point that I have made that has resonated with you specifically. Okay, so like I was saying, you need to be able to identify your non-negotiables. There's a difference between negotiables and non-negotiables. Negotiables are areas where you are able to compromise in a way that doesn't stand in line with who you are in essence as a person. Non-negotiables are areas where you are not willing to compromise. They form the essence of your ideology and your values and the way you present and position yourself in the world. So it's important we go through this with dating to marry clients, because if you don't know your non-negotiables and you don't know your areas of negotiables, you will be in relationships that will be very confusing, complicated, and would potentially, highly in fact, probably lead to situationships, because you're going to lose your identity in the process of trying to become someone you are not, because you have compromised areas you are not comfortable with compromising. Let me give you an example. A non-negotiable could be, I don't want to date somebody that is not having a relationship with God. You meet a guy that is an atheist or agnostic. He's not in any way interested in the faith. You've compromised. That's a non-negotiable. You are going to be, I guarantee from the get-go, you're going to have complications. You're going to be saying, can I bring him to the faith? What's the probability that we will have a good marriage? You're going to start asking questions that will not that have no basis in a healthy relationship, because you're already in an unhealthy situation. So you need to be able to properly identify your non-negotiables. And here's the thing: non-negotiables are not just about the standard the standard areas of, okay, is he a Christian, is he not a Christian, is he kind, is he not kind. They are more personal, they are more specific, and everybody's non-negotiables look different. As you all know, I like using job examples. So for instance, if you're applying, and I like using the law because by practice I'm a lawyer. So if you're applying to a law firm, for instance, and they say that you're applying for the role of a junior associate, maybe in the litigation division, right? There are certain qualifiers they are going to use to assess whether or not you are the right fit, based on the role and based on the type of firm you're working with and the division that you'll be working for. Okay, so in that particular instance, it's a non-negotiable that you have to have a legal license. In that particular instance, it's a non-negotiable that you have to be, you have to have graduated with a certain level of acumen. Maybe you have a certain level of practice in the field. You are articulate because obviously the role is litigation. So you have to be able to articulate yourself. Those are general non-negotiables. You pass those, broad benchmarks. You've passed the first process. Now you have to engage with them in the interview process, getting to know you see if you're the right culture fit for the organization, whether they like you, whether you like them. Those are more specific non-negotiables. Do you fit the culture of the organization? Are you somebody that is able to actively have an interesting conversation? Do you have your own perspective on issues? Are you able to properly represent yourself if there is a debate that is not going in alignment, if you're on the opposing side of a debate, for instance? Those are non-negotiables that are more specific. So it's the same way in the dating process. You have to be able to make the difference. The problem that you're experiencing that is making it difficult for you to understand what the right man looks like as opposed to what the right man for you looks like is that you're just looking at the broad spec of non-negotiables. You're just focusing on the fact that this is a Christian man, he's kind, and this is somebody I find physically attractive. You're not taking it more personal. You're not getting more specific. You're not thinking about, okay, if he's a Christian man, what does that look like for me when both of us are in a relationship? If he's somebody that is emotionally balanced, how are we both able to emotionally represent ourselves when we are actively engaging in conversations? If he's somebody I'm physically attracted to, how is that showing up in our relationship in terms of how we express ourselves and respect our values? That is more specific in the non-negotiable spectrum. So you need to be able to know the difference to be able to properly qualify, okay, he's a good man, but is he the right man for me? And you also need to, so that's why a lot of Christians are struggling with, oh, but he's a Christian, but I don't find him attractive. Should I still date him? That's a clear non-negotiable. If you're not attracted to him, you don't go into an active relationship with him. or, oh, he's not a Christian, but he's kind, I find him attractive. Again, that's a clear non-negotiable. You shouldn't be moving ahead with that. He's a good man, he's kind, he's considerate, but I'm not interested in developing a relationship with him. I get bored easily. Again, another non-negotiable. So you need to be able to properly qualify what non-negotiables look like for you, generally and more specifically. And when you do this, it's going to help you to actively understand what you're supposed to be looking out through the dating process. It's going to make it easier for you to vet. It's going to make it easier for you to qualify men. It's going to make it easier for you to know when a man is in alignment with your values, when he is the right man for you that you could potentially marry. And as you guys know, I clearly state that God will give you options to choose from, because I believe our God is a God of abundance. They may not present themselves at the same time, but they will present themselves. And it's not the area where people get confused with. They say, oh, usually I see comments along the lines of God is not, and I purposely don't engage with comments, because I've made a statement that I have clearly thought through and I have clearly articulated. So if whether or not you're in alignment or not, it's really not my business at that point. But I do take note of the comments that will cause confusion, so I can clearly clarify them in lives where I have a proper means and channel of expressing what I mean. Okay, so when we're talking about God presenting multiple options to you, it's not from the standpoint of looking at it as if God is a God of confusion. No, there are qualifiers in place. If you go through the proper channels, you will know what the right options look like. It's like saying you're applying, like, again, I'm going to use professional examples. You're applying for a job in an organization. Of course, you're not the only one that is going to be applying. First of all, there are going to be a certain pool of applicants they're going to choose from. And as you get closer to qualifying for that job and being given that job, that pool is going to get smaller. And it could narrow down to you and another person. But it doesn't mean either of you are not qualified for the role. At that point, it's not about if you're qualified or not. At that point, it's not about if you have the right degrees and the right licenses. At that point, it's not about if you're clearly able to express yourself, if you have the right level of experience. At that point, none of that, all of that has been qualified previously. At that point, it's just down to choice. That's what it looks like when you have options of men to choose from. But where people are looking, at that point, it's not a point of confusion. It's just a point of preference. That's what people don't understand. That's what it looks like when you choose from a pool of men. But the way it's being understood is as if you are making the choice from the start, where there is a more diverse pool, there's a larger there are larger options to choose from. No, if you're properly qualifying as you're dating, that pool is going to get smaller and it's going to get more specific to the point where you can make a choice. And whether you go with Mr. A or Mr. B, either way, that choice is blessed. So you have to properly understand this to be able to discern as you're dating. That's what it looks like when you are in the process of qualifying as you're dating. That's what it looks like when you're in the process of being able to articulate clearly why you have chosen Mr. A over Mr. B, why exactly it is that person is of particular preference to you as opposed to somebody else, why exactly it is you want to go with this particular option as opposed to the other one. And you have to be able to stand by your decision. But what I've come to understand through doing this for the past 8 years is a lot of couples don't know why they chose who they chose. They don't even know what exactly it is that made them choose that person, or why it looks like why that choice was of particular importance at that point in time, because they are not responsible for their dating process. That's why we show our clients, whether you're in wife in waiting or dating to marry, we show you how to take accountability for your dating process, because if not, you're not going to be able to take accountability for your partner that you have chosen when you eventually get married to that person. So when you understand, circling back to the point about non-negotiables, when you know what your non-negotiables are, you will be able to choose. You will be able to properly identify why this person qualifies or they are not qualified. What exactly it is about this particular person that is making you lean towards them in continuing in conversation, whether that be the case, or potentially considering exclusivity, whatever the case may be. Not to be confused, at the point of making a choice of exclusivity, you have chosen that person. At the point of getting the job and being hired to that particular role, you have been given that particular, you have committed to that person rather as the employer, you have chosen that person for that role. You are no longer engaging with the other person that you considered. You are no longer following up with them, asking them questions as if you are giving them the job. You have made your choice. It's the same way with dating. Once you've gone exclusive, you have gone exclusive. So that's what it looks like. There's a time to look through your options, and there's a time to choose, and there's a time to have made a choice. At each point, what you are supposed to be discerning and what you're supposed to be vetting and qualifying is going to look different. And that's what we're very clear with our clients on, understanding how that looks like for them personally. Now, this will also help you choose the right man for you to marry, because you are looking at it through the lens of what are the options that are available to me based on the kind of marriage God has called me to, based on my relationship with the Father and what exactly He has told me at this particular point in time. Why is this person of so much interest to me? How do they fit into my non-negotiables? Those are qualifiers that are going to make sure that you make the right choice, because it's in alignment with the values that God has given you, and it's in alignment with the mission He has called you to. So if foundationally you don't have a clue as to what your marital mission is, you have no understanding as to what exactly your non-negotiables are, you are fundamentally going to be at risk of making the wrong choice, because you are not using the proper qualifiers initially to make that particular choice in the first place. Okay, so yes, I've said a lot, but let me know if what part is resonating with you. Make sure you tag your friends to join this live, because I will not be taking questions after. But if you are interested in working more intimately with me in our program, make sure that you click the link in bio and the first tab to register for our open house, where I'll be breaking down the dating to marry system. Or you can send me a DM about the program, and I'll be glad to converse with you more about it and put you through the proper channels to apply. Okay, so we've talked about the difference between the right man and the right man to marry being that you need to have a personal relationship with the Father. You need to know the kind of marriage you've been called to. You need to be able to identify non-negotiables. And here's another thing. You also need to know the kind of relationship you've been called to. What we're very clear with our wife-in-waiting sisters and dating to marry clients on is being able to properly understand through the dating process how that's going to mirror their marital choices and their marital choice eventually. So as you're in a relationship with that person, you should be able to see the way the dynamics, the way your relationship is operating, to the point of having a clue as to what this will look like when you commit to a marriage with them. You should be able to see how both of you engage in each other's lifestyles, how the balance, so to speak, falls in terms of, and conversing with one another, connecting with one another, communicating. That will show you what will show up in the marriage, to be very honest. In fact, there's nothing you will see in the relationship that will not show up in multiples inside the marriage. So it's important that you know what that dynamic looks like. Now, you also need to know the difference between what's permanent and what's temporary. And I've been doing this for a long time, the way you make mistakes when it comes to dating as a saved woman is you're categorizing a man's actions wrongly. So you're looking at temporary emotions as permanent actions. So for instance, he texts you 4 times, 5 times a day today. You assume permanently, this is a man that I could potentially marry. This is my husband. You start thinking about the wedding. You start adding your name to his last name. You start canceling your schedule, pre-committing, making room for this person because you have made a permanent decision based on temporary emotions. You rush to qualify them based on, how actively he's responding to your text, how much he wants to see you in the space of 1 week, how many times he wants to engage with you in conversation, or how interested he is in whatever projects you have going on for that particular point in time. And you miss the permanent markers, which is there consistency? Are we able to see patterns that lean towards showing that this person is permanently invested in me based on how active they are in my relationships, in getting to know me, how much they are present in my process, whether it's my professional decisions or my personal relationships. You miss all those markers because you're just carried away by the moment. He said he loves me. He called me his wife. He introduced me to his friends. We went on a trip together. You are making permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. You are forgetting to look at whether there is, you look at, oh, his current financial position, rather than looking at, does he have the acumen to maintain financial stability. You look at, oh, the fact that he goes to church on Sunday, instead of looking at the fact that, does he have an active relationship with God. You look at the fact that, oh, he texts me 24/7, instead of looking at the fact that, is he consistently kind to those around him? Does he actively engage with me when we're together? Does he keep his word about times we're going to meet and places we're going to go to? So you are confusing what is permanent with what is temporary. And that's why you don't know the difference between the right man and the right man for you to marry. Marriage is a permanent decision. It's not a temporary one. And part of the reason a lot of couples are experiencing problems in their marriage is because they made a permanent decision based on temporary feelings. It's not enough for a man to just propose. It's not about the proposal. It's about making sure that the person that is proposing to you is the right fit for you. It's not enough for him to say he wants to marry you. It's about him being able to show that he is qualified to take care of you in a way that is in alignment with the values that God has expounded to you. It's not about the fact that he wants to get married in 6 months or 6 weeks. It's more about the fact that, why does he want to get married within that time frame, and is that in alignment with the process and the pace at which we're getting to know each other. But that is not happening in the dating scene, and that's why y'all are getting confused by what exactly to look out for through the process of qualifying whether this is the right man or is the right man for you to marry. And just because, let me tell you something, Christian men ghost too, because nobody is perfect. Just because he ghosted, or he said he loves you today and doesn't love you, and he doesn't say he loves you tomorrow, or he's no longer interested in the relationship, doesn't mean he's a bad man. It doesn't mean he's suddenly not a Christian. It just means he's a human being. If you start reacting, let's be careful with our English here. If you start reacting from that standpoint towards a bad experience with one man, you're going to disqualify a lot of qualified men. You're going to start assuming, oh, I dated a doctor that never had my time, so that means this, because this one is a doctor, he won't have my time. I dated a person that attended this particular church, so if I did this one, they're all alike. There's no basis for that assumption. You're just coming to conclusions based on, again, you're making permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. And that's why you're finding it difficult to properly qualify, okay, is this the right man, or is this the right man for me to marry? Is this resonating with you? Drop it in the comments. Let me know if it's resonating with you, what part exactly spoke to you. Okay, so another reason is you need to be able to vet in alignment with your values. What this simply means is your value system is going to determine the way you date. A very broad value system could be, you want to date somebody that is a Christian, you want to date somebody that is kind, you want to date somebody that you can enjoy fitness together. So you want to vet in alignment with those values. In other words, look out to see if this person is a Christian, look out to see if they're kind, and look out to see if they are also in, alignment with fitness, since it's a priority and it's of importance to you. And what you need to understand is the right man may fit all those metrics, but he may not necessarily be the right person for you to marry based on the values that God has called you to carry into your marriage. So it's not enough to just say that, oh, because he's a Christian and he is, what did I even say as an example? He's a Christian, he's kind, and he's fit, right? That means I can marry him. No, that's just the starting point. That's the area in which that you are going to start vetting from. It's not the area you stop vetting at. So that's just to help you to properly filter through the right sieve, so to speak, whether or not you should establish communication with this person more consistently, whether you should be more open with them, whether you should engage with them on going on dates, spend more time getting to know them, and so on and so forth. But you want to be able to align yourself in a way where your values are so clear to you that they are specific to who you are as a person. So I'm going to use the job example, and this is what we show dating to marry clients how to do with our marital template, which basically is just a template where we show them to be able to, a template that they have access to show them exactly what their spouses look like, even if they haven't met him yet, so that they can date in alignment with those values very easily. So what is important to understand is your values are in tune with who you are as a person. It's not what your pastor wants, it's not what your parents want, it's not what your peers have, but a lot of you are making your value system in alignment with what your parents say is right or wrong. You're making your value system in alignment with what your friends have. You're making your value system in alignment with what your pastor and your prophet said. And the problem with that is not the value system that God has given you. It doesn't mean the value system they have is wrong. Maybe all these different types of individuals I've mentioned have all agreed that you should marry a Christian man. There's nothing wrong with that. But the way God articulated that to you is specific. So what looks like the right man, the right Christian man to them will not necessarily gel with what God said to you specifically is the right Christian man for you. And that's where the mistake is being made in qualifying the right man versus the right man to marry. What looks like the kind man to them is not necessarily how God told you the kindness of a man will be expressed to you to show you that this is a potential for you to marry. So it's important that you are able to make that distinction so that you are vetting in alignment with your values. That's what I mean by this. I'll use the example of a job application again because it's so perfect when I'm trying to explain what vetting looks like. So imagine applying for a role that they did not give you a description, they did not give you any information about the organization. What are you applying for? Like, you would not know how to properly present yourself. You will not even know if you're interested in that role. You will not know what particular qualities you should expound upon and what qualities you should not mention in your CV because you don't know what you're applying for. But that's how a lot of you are approaching the dating scene. You don't know what you're looking for, and that's why you're finding it difficult for you to be able to understand, okay, what is the right man and what is the right man for me? How do I know these are the qualities I should look out for and these are not the qualities to look out for? It starts with you. You need to be able to properly articulate exactly what it is. Like I said, it starts with your relationship with God. Like, even if you got saved this morning, he will tell you something. It starts from there, so that you are able to align yourself with a path that is cognizant with what he has called you to accomplish, not only in choosing the right man, but also in choosing your professional goals, in choosing the way you show up for friends and family members, and the kinds of people you choose to associate yourself with. Literally, in dating to marry, we look at it holistically. We have a session where we walk clients through a holistic view of their lives. We look at their finances, different areas of relationships, and so on and so forth too. And there are always connections to be able to see how they are showing up in those different areas so that they can properly align themselves to attract the right people for them, to attract not only romantically speaking but professionally speaking as well, and speaking in terms of relationships that may just be platonic. Everything is connected. So that's why we walk clients through that process, and that's why it's important for you to know your own value system intimately. Okay, now another area is, I'm sharing a lot. So make sure you tap the hearts to let me know that you're paying close attention, and let me know in the comments what particular point resonated. I'm just going to take a breather for a second. What particular point? Just tap the hearts, say yes if you're here and you're actively listening to what I'm saying. And make sure you tag a friend to join the live. Like I said, if you have any questions, drop it in the question box, not in the chat box, not in the comment box rather. I'm looking at my notes, by the way. If you see me look this direction, that's what I'm doing. Now, you also need to understand that to know the difference between the right man and the right man for you to marry, you need to probably be able to understand the difference between standards and preferences. So you need to know exactly how to be able to indicate when a man fits your standards and not just your preferences. But a lot of you are dating with preferences and not standards. So what that means is, I won't date him if he's below 6 foot. I won't date him if he earns less than 6 figures. I won't date him if he's a doctor. I won't date him if he's not a medical professional. That's a preference. That's not a standard. And because you're dating in alignment with preferences, you're not dating anywhere close to knowing what the right man for you looks like, or knowing even what a right man looks like, because you're looking at, again, like I had said previously, you're using temporary emotions to make permanent decisions. What does it matter if he's earning 6 figures or not? He could lose all of that tomorrow. What does it matter if he's not 6'5"? How is that going to contribute to the stability of your home? What does it matter if he's not from a particular tribe or he's not in a particular profession? He could choose to leave that profession tomorrow. He could choose to walk out of that particular line of work today. There's no permanency around that particular point to contribute to your decision whether or not you want to marry this person. So you need to use standards instead of whether he's 6'5", 6'7", is he tall? Instead of whether or not he is professionally he's a medical professional, he's a legal professional, he's a banking professional. Does he have a stable source of income? Is he educated? Is he somebody that is showing patterns of consistency when it comes to provision? That's what you need to be checking for instead, to know the right man versus the right man to marry. And when you start dating, a lot of you don't particularly have this issue right now because you're not dating the right way. I see a lot of the other day I did a Q&A, questions around how do I stop dating the wrong man? Why is it a mess? Why is the dating pool a mess? None of my clients have that problem. What I'm helping them to qualify right now through the process of dating to marry is to understand, how do I know if this is the right man for me? Because when you start attracting quality men, it's no longer a question of he's toxic. No, now it's a question of how do I properly discern specifically to know this is the right person for me to marry. So that's the space you want to be in when you're dating for the purpose of a godly marriage. And you also want to learn how to date with your spirit and flesh at the same time. So what I mean by that is, I always say God speaks through your flesh too, and if you want scriptural reference for that, the scripture says that be fruitful and multiply. How are you going to be fruitful and multiply apart from being able to multiply your actions professionally? It's also talking about being able to conceive. Where do you conceive through? It's your body, isn't it? Another example is when scripture says, I always confuse whether it's Paul or Peter, said that he had given me a thorn in my flesh, and I asked him 3 times to remove the thorn, and he said, my grace is sufficient for you. That was God using the flesh of his servants to teach him a lesson about the way God shows up for us in our weaknesses. God speaks through your flesh too. But again, this isn't popular in Christian culture. It's not taught a lot in the church. That's why we have a lot of Christian women getting confused by sexual attraction to a guy, or feeling like they want to, or rejecting the part of themselves that is actually telling you that you are intimately interested. Thank you, Paul. That is telling you that you are intimately interested in this person. That's why they will say, it's a sin for you to want to be to find somebody sexually attractive, or it's a sin for you to wear clothes that fit your body in a way that shows your figure. There's nothing wrong with that. You can be covered up and wear a fitted dress, and you will still look decent. If somebody has a problem with lust, if you wear a loose dress, they will still have a problem with lust. So it's not your responsibility. And that's unfortunately what is not being taught in the faith. That's why a lot of Christian women are confused about how they show up in the dating scene. Some churches say it's evil to wear makeup, it's evil to wear jewelry. Why? Why? What is wrong with that? In scripture, Esther was literally put through beauty treatments and special food. If you go and read Esther chapter 2, if you want to talk about women being saved and sexy and being able to show up sensually, Ruth was told to wear perfume and her best clothes before she approached Boaz in Ruth chapter 3. Esther literally had to go through perfume, cosmetics, body oil treatments before she could even approach the king. So when they say there's no version of this on scripture, I'm like, are you reading the Bible at all? Are you actually reading the Bible, or are you just looking for a way to constantly constrict the way a woman expresses herself? Because that's the problem. There are verses of this in scripture. You can go and check what I've just said. Check Esther 2, check Ruth chapter 3. There are examples in scripture. In fact, in 1 Peter 3:3-4, scripture also says that your value there's nothing wrong with adorning yourself, but your value should come from your spirit, because that's of great worth in God's sight. They did not say don't do a hairstyle. It literally says, and I'm paraphrasing, there's nothing wrong with elaborate hairstyles, there's nothing wrong with jewelry, but that is not where your value should come from. So why are we misinterpreting what the word is saying just because we're assuming that it means that, because I say somebody can be saved, sexy, and sensual, it means that they must open their legs and just be having sex with everybody? As you all know, me, I'm very blunt, so I I don't understand the confusion. That's why you have to know God yourself, please. That's why you have to know scripture yourself before they confuse you with all their English. So go and read your Bible, okay? I know for a fact when I started walking in the faith, the Holy Spirit taught me how to compose myself, not only in terms of how I speak, but in terms of how I dress. He actively started showing me how to do it. And it's not every time he tells me to wear loose clothes. Sometimes I wear figure-hugging clothes. Doesn't mean I'm dressed sloppily. It doesn't mean that I'm trying to manipulate men. It just means that this is what I'm comfortable with wearing at the moment. And there's nothing wrong with it from my spirit of confirmation. I don't have to account to anybody else. And it's important as a woman you are able to do this yourself. So that when you are dating, you are properly able to use your spirit and your flesh to know exactly what it looks like when you're talking to a man you potentially want to marry. You are able to pick up signals to know when a man is attracted to you. You are able to know when a man is just interested in a platonic relationship or he wants to take the next step. You are able to qualify if he is interested in your spirit, soul, and body. If you read that post, that's what I said. Or he's just interested in your body. You should be able to tell the difference as a woman. You should be able to know when a man is drawn to you because of your worth, as opposed to or rather because of your value, as opposed to just your vessel. You should be able to tell the difference. But if you're not participating in understanding how to show up, if you don't know how to flirt, if you don't know the body language to look out for, how are you going to know? Who is going to tell you? How are you going to know the difference? So please, I'm not for all that. I don't understand all that nonsense about no, discard the flesh, do this, do that. Yes, the spirit comes ahead of the flesh, but they did not say that your flesh should not participate in how you make a choice from your spirit. There are examples in scripture where the Lord literally told one of his servants, do not call what I have called clean unclean. So there's a difference between religion and relationship. You need to know which part you are participating in, please. Okay, so let's understand this, because if you want to know the difference between the right man and the right man for you, you also need to know if you find them sexually attractive. That could be literally the only difference. That he's a good man, he's a nice man, he takes everything, but I'm not attracted to him. That's why I get questions asking me, I'm not attracted to him, can I still date him? Why? Because you're not listening to what your body is telling you, and that's part of the problem. How can you? I literally had, I get a lot of DMs. I've gotten a couple of DMs around, I'm married to somebody, or one particularly stands out in mind. I'm married to somebody, I wasn't attracted to them before the marriage. Now you've entered the marriage and you're looking at divorce. So because you didn't pay attention to your body, right? You didn't pay attention to the fact that your body was not interested in getting to know this individual. So you need to be able to know the difference, okay? And you need to be able to understand the ability to choose as you date. This is what I was talking about. Again, put your questions in the chat, in the question box. I won't answer it otherwise. That's how we operate in our lives. Put your question in the question box. You won't be able to tell the difference otherwise. And I have to go very soon. I have a meeting with a client in like a couple of minutes. So make sure you are able to look at substance over, what was I even saying? Understand the ability to choose as you date. You have the power of choice. You don't have to choose the first man that comes along because he's the first man that comes along. You don't have to marry the first man that proposes marriage because he's the first man that proposes marriage. You don't have to go on a date with the first man that asks you out because he's the first man to ask you out in the past 3 months. Let's properly qualify the fact that we have the ability to choose. You just need to put yourself in a position to make a choice. Okay? You actively need to work on your ability to make a choice. You need to also properly filter options according to actions, not just words. Pay attention to that man's actions, pay attention to the consistency of it to be able to know if this is a pattern you can commit to, right? Just because he's a good man, like I said, doesn't mean he's a good husband. You need to properly be able to know the difference between, yes, he'll make a great husband for someone else, but not for me. Like I had said earlier, maybe you are called to the missionary work, or you are called to make professional exploits in your field, and this man is a great man, but he doesn't want you to work. He's not interested in the missionary life. He doesn't want to engage with you. Okay, I'm getting that the question box isn't showing. That's weird. Thanks for that clarification. Okay, so I guess just drop it in the chat. Drop it in the chat. I'll ask in the next 2 minutes. You guys can drop your questions, so I'll be able to see it in the chat. The reason I don't like answering questions in the chat is there are so many scrolling. There's so much scrolling going on. I won't be able to see questions. But if the question box is not showing, I'll take questions in the next 2 minutes, and then you all can just drop it in the chat. I also want you to understand that there are different levels of what God's yes looks like practically. Again, using the interviewing process for the interviewing style of applying for a job, you may reach the first stage, but you may not reach the second stage. You may reach the second stage, but you may not reach the final stage. But the questions they ask you at the first stage of the interview process will definitely be different from the second and the third. In fact, the people you engage with at each stage will potentially be different. And the level at which they will ask you questions will also be different. So it's the same way as you're dating and God is saying yes. You need to practically understand what his yes looks like in those situations and scenarios to see whether or not, okay, this is somebody that I can marry. You first need to qualify, okay, did God say yes? Did God say yes, I can even date this person? Okay, then if he said yes, okay, what did God say about during the process of dating this person? Just because God says you can date him doesn't mean you can marry him. In fact, the closer you get to the point of marriage, the more questions you should be going to ask God. That's what I was talking to my wife in Waiting Sisters about in one of our previous coaching calls, and we literally provide dating to marry clients with a template on praying for their future husband so that they are spiritually sensitive to what God's yes looks like practically. That's why clients are able to date in a pattern that is in alignment with their marriages. Okay, guys, drop your questions. I just have a couple of minutes before I have to go to my client call. Okay, what would you say regarding young women who marry men their father's age? That's their choice. That's literally their choice. I don't have anything against. Your choice is your choice. What we don't tell our clients what to do. We just show you how to think. I'm not in a position to judge your actions, and I don't want to be. It's not my decision. It's your decision to make. That's why I always say you need to be able to confirm with God exactly what your own marital process looks like, and you make your choice. You either walk with him. In fact, God has given us free will. At the end of the day, he's giving you a choice. So at the end, you just need to know how to make your choice. So I don't have a problem with that. If that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. That's their life. How do I know the marriage I am called to? Simply put, you just need to have a relationship with God, practically understand what that looks like when it comes to achieving your purpose, and use that to qualify the men that you date. We break this down more granularly in Dating to Marry because, A's marriage is different from B's marriage, is different from C's marriage. So look at your life for clues. What we do with clients in Dating to Marry is we put them through a process to be able to understand what that looks like for them intimately. So that's the summary of that. That's the extent to which I can help, to be honest, outside our program containers, because I don't have enough information otherwise. So guys, if you have any questions, you can drop it at this point in the chat. Apparently the question box is not showing. Thank you for clarifying that for me. So like I have said, you also need to look at substance, not just surface value. In other words, just because this person is fine, saved, fit, doesn't mean that they qualify for marriage. That's surface value. What is the substance of that attraction? Okay, are they only speaking to your flesh, or are they more intimately engaging with your spirit? Are they engaging with your mind and your intellect? Are they participating in your life in a way that you can potentially build a long-term partnership? I've also talked about being able to identify non-negotiables. You need to know your relationship with God, the kind of marriage you've been called to, being able to vet in alignment with your values, being able to know the difference between standards and preferences. A lot of Christians move towards preference over standard and they confuse it. I gave you an example. You don't want to date somebody that is below 6'5", but that's a preference. A standard could be that the fact that they are tall. You need to learn to date with your spirit and your flesh, putting them in the proper categories. Your spirit speaks first, but your flesh definitely has an opinion. Listen to what I said. Your spirit speaks first. In other words, what your spirit is saying is always right. Your flesh has an opinion. That doesn't mean it's right. It just means that it is part of your process of qualifying. look at substance offered, not just surface value. Good man doesn't mean good husband. You need scriptures to back up dating. I don't understand what that question means. It depends on, go and read Esther. Broadly speaking, read Esther, read Ruth, read Deborah in Judges 4. There are scriptural clues there as to what the dating process should look like. Go and read the story of Isaac and Rebecca, Jacob, Rachel, and Leah. Those are scriptures you can look to specifically for guidance on what the courtship process should look like. Okay? So do we have other questions, or is everybody good? Let me know if you enjoyed this live. Tap the hearts. If you want to be part of the Dating to Marry program, just apply by sending me a DM saying DTM. That's D for dating, T for 2, M for marry. Or click the link in my bio and second tab. If you want to register for our public open house, where I'll be walking you through the Dating to Marry process, how we show you the way our system operates through the 12-week program, then register with the link in bio. Everything is clearly indicated. Once you click the link in my bio, all the tabs are clearly indicated, so you should be able to navigate very easily. So if you're interested, we close for the year next week. If you want to participate, let me know by applying for the program, registering for the open house. If you have questions about Dating to Marry, send me a DM. Okay? What's your stance regarding having sex with one's partner before marriage, but now we have chosen to stop? Does that mean we can't marry or have a good marriage? Let me tell you something. Sexual abstinence is based on your commitment to God. It doesn't mean that you won't have a good marriage. It doesn't mean that you won't marry the right person. It is a commitment you make to God for Him to show up in an abundance, so to speak, inside your marriage. And Scripture also says, keep the marital bed undefiled. If both of you have chosen to stop, that's great. So now both of you need to make steps to honor that choice, to make sure that it doesn't infect the way you made the choice, so to speak. So here's the thing. Like I like to keep it real on this platform. I won't say something. What's the word? I won't say something that I know is not true. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't agree, and I really don't care. If you guys have followed me long enough, you know I will still say it. If I feel like that's what God is leading me to say. There have been situations where Christian couples have had sex before marriage and they're happily married. So, yes, scripturally you're not meant to do it. But it doesn't mean, I don't want you to think that because we've had sex, this is not the right person for me. Absolutely not. Make a choice, as both of you have made a choice to stop, actively honor that commitment and see what God is saying from that point on. You've actively turned away from that scene, so move on from there and see what God says. Okay? How often do I run these lives? Nope. It's not every Thursday, same time. I could wake up tomorrow and be like, I feel like talking, and I'll go live. So what I would just say is I run lives on weekends more frequently than weekdays. So usually Saturdays, noon, 1 p.m. West African time. Anywhere from that point, I run lives. And during the week, it could be any time during the week, really, that I find the time to go live, then I will. At what point should you decide to marry a lady, since love isn't enough? If you are not in love with her as the baseline, or if there's no physical attraction there, then you definitely don't want to marry her. But you should know, as the man, you should know when you're ready. Just some general metrics. Are you financially stable enough? Is this somebody you can commit to for the rest of your life? Have you dated enough to know the person? Are you ready to make that level of commitment? How far is too far in vetting? There's a difference between vetting and insecurity. When you start going through your partner's phone, following them on every social media platform feasible, doubting their actions, spying on them, that's not vetting. That's insecurity. People, when you apply for a job, they don't follow you to your house. They don't ask you, which other job did you apply to? Have they followed up with you? What did they offer you? Except you're in the negotiation process. There is a particular space for certain habits to be encouraged. It is never okay to start stalking your partner. That's not vetting. So let's be clear. Vetting is not stalking. It's not insecurity. Vetting is just properly qualifying whether this person is in alignment with your values and both of you want to move forward. Thank you. Lola says, I admire you for being so confident. Thank you so much. I don't understand this question. Oh, billionaire. I don't get the question. It kind of broke off. How long is the Dating to Marry program for? What's the duration? It's a 12-week program, but I work with professional women, so the 12 weeks usually extends to 12 to 16 weeks, but it's a 12-session program. Let me put it like that. So through the 12 sessions, we walk through your patterns, your positioning, and the way you present yourself, so that you're in alignment with the kind of marriage that God has called you to. We've seen clients go from not dating anyone at all to getting married within a year of the program. We've seen clients enjoy the process of dating from hating the process of dating. We've literally seen clients within one session start actively engaging in conversations with different men, and now learning the process of qualification in alignment with their marital desires. So yeah, that's how Dating to Marry works. It shows you how to use your patterns to position yourself and present yourself for the marriage that God has called you to. Okay. I don't feel at peace. You don't feel at peace with the guy. You hate the thought of marrying him. Then sis, why are you talking to him? That's a clear indication that you're not interested. When you lose your peace in a relationship, what should you do? Look for the reason you lost your peace. It's God. If you can't, if it's peace that passes, if you lost the peace that passes understanding, this is a very advanced concept. We literally break it down for clients towards the end of Dating to Marry, after laying foundational concepts for them to be able to practically understand how to show up when dating. But in summary, if you've lost the peace that passes all understanding when you are dating, that is, you don't know where the peace was lost or why it has lost or why it has gotten lost, then that's from your spirit, and you need to pay attention to why that is there. But if you lost your peace from your flesh, which a lot of Christians don't talk about, which is that he's not earning 6 figures, you lost peace about that, that's God pruning you. That's not a sign of necessarily to marry that person. That's what I'll say on that, because this is, like I said, it's an advanced concept that we break down for Dating to Marry clients. Dating to Marry is a 4-figure investment, 4 figures in USD. It's a 4-figure investment. So if you are interested in the program, if you are ready to take that step, be ready to make a 4-figure investment. Yes, if you're already dating, you can join Dating to Marry. Dating to Marry is a program that I have, as long as you're not married yet. If you were previously married, we've worked with women that have gone through divorce. We've worked with women that are not married yet. We've worked with women that are actively dating. Whatever single whatever type of singleness you fall into, whether you were previously married, you've never been married, you're actively dating, you're engaged, Dating to Marry is a program for you, as long as you're not married. If you're still married, we will not take you in the program. Dating to Marry is only for clients that are not married yet or are not married at this point in time. It's not a free program. None of my programs are free. 4-figure investment in USD. If you want to know the fee and you want to know the payment plan, send me a DM or apply with the form available in my Instagram bio. I have to go now. I have a meeting with a client. But make sure that you share this live with your friends and anyone that you know it will be helpful to. I'll see you guys next time.